Welcome to Inside the Truck YouTube number 7. I'm Steve Lansky, and this is Paul Hemming. And before we even start, there's two things. Number one, you have a backdrop now. I was not included in the backdrop order form. What is going on? Are you still in the closet? It's
Still
just
in,
masked, right?
still in the closet, Steve. Yes, absolutely. But you know what? Every once in a while, your surroundings, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a house, whether it's a condo, whether it's a garage, you just want to pimp up your space. So, and actually, this was born out of laziness because I was tired of carting out 30 to 40 sports jerseys every time we did a video to hang on a rod behind me. So I just simplified. And what do you think? I like it.
I love it. I mean, I feel left out. I feel like the kid who's not eating at the cool kids table at lunch, but that's really nothing new for me. So
I would have bought you one, Steve, but I know how much you love your media guides. And I couldn't, if, I didn't want you, like, I could have had one of these show up on your doorstep too for $80, but I didn't want you to feel obligated that I had to cover up your media guides and, your Gretzky McFarland statues and stuff like that. So, but I'm happy to get you one, if you'd like.
yeah, I have a BS detector, and it's going off so hard right now. It's on my leg and it's burning my thigh. So we should probably move forward. Now,
Yeah.
today we're going to talk about the outdoor weekend. Although, as they say in the United States, they say outdoors. We
That's
never
right.
say outdoors in Canada, right? We're just going outdoor.
Right.
Yeah, so they've added the S,
Uh-huh.
and the title is what I love right up here. Not on Frozen Pond, in Frozen Pond, Paul.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because that first Saturday in the sunshine, that didn't go so well.
No, no, it didn't. I'm not sure what they didn't understand about direct sunlight beating down on an unprotected ice surface for many hours. Yeah, we chuckle about it now, but man, we're just lucky that somebody didn't seriously get injured because, for those of you out there who can skate and live in climates where you're able to skate, if you ever tried skating in slush, it's not so good.
It,
And they found that out firsthand on national TV yesterday.
not only skating in slush, but you're going. It's not like you're skating in slush. You're skating on ice, and then you hit the slush, which
Right.
is like,
Yeah.
and then you're running on the sidewalk, and then all of a sudden you're running in wet concrete. Like
Right.
you're in big trouble.
Oh yeah, as we saw by players going down, and then the close-up images, Steve, of the ice crew, I guess, or the ice army that ended up being out there with their that were disturbing. I mean, there were chunks of slush that were like right down to basically the concrete layer that they were on there. So, I mean, mercifully, they did the right thing for everybody involved. I think officially last night that was probably the longest game in NHL history, probably, right? Is it safe to say that?
Uh, Actually not, because I think there's been a couple of games, like maybe when Yuri Fisher collapsed and when Jay Bomeister collapsed. Didn't they finish that game like a month later? I think
Oh,
they
was
did,
it?
actually. I
Okay.
think so.
Okay. Well,
I
I
haven't
guess
looked it up, but
I guess it would be the longest NHL game on record completed in one day. I
that
think
sounds
that's safe
about
to
right.
say. Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Well, when your broadcasters can have a mid-game nap if they
Hmm.
want to,
Yeah.
that's a long game.
Yeah. My question was, what did the players do for 7 hours between whistles? Um, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny here. I'm being serious. Like, they have to gear down. They got to go back to wherever their accommodations were. Um, they're hungry, but you can't eat a big meal, and you can't really have another nap. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have your game day twice in one day. It'd be interesting to know what the players did there, but you know, um, you could tell it was going to be a situation when that first period ended, and then NBC went to their here in the United States. NBC went to their intermission report, and I'm like, this intermission report is not going to end. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought the game would have been canceled, period. But the league was very careful not to use the word postponed or canceled. It was just in a delay.
Right.
So,
I thought it was interesting that Eddie Olczyk on NBC said that basically the first period is going to be like the morning skate. Then they're going to have a whole afternoon like they would normally have. Then they're just going to come back and play a night game. I don't know if that would have worked as a player with their psyche or
no,
not.
no, you ramp up to play, right? If
Yeah.
the puck drops at 7:08, you ramp up your whole day to 7:08, so that when you come out for that, your lap before the anthem, you're like, you could skate through a wall. It's pretty tough to get that to happen twice in one day.
I thought it was interesting that NBC, I only remember two replays, they were back to back, of players clearly skating along and hitting some slush. And they either realized we maybe shouldn't be replaying this, or somebody said, yeah, we don't want to see that again. Because that was just the one time we saw that, and that was it. And what did you think of the broadcast? I mean, that's first of all, I don't know where we even start on this. You've got a list, I think, of facts that they had for this game. I don't know if you have that nearby.
Yeah.
But
So they had 30 cameras, 30 like that. That's incorrect. They had 30 cameras that would have been in play for game coverage. So that includes 7 hard cameras, 3 handhelds. They had 2 RF units. One was on a steady cam and one was a handheld. They had 1 jib. They had 5 robotic cameras. They had 2 drones, like a larger kind of slow moving drone that you could operate at, a slower speed at greater heights. And then they had a quicker drone that was, used for closer to the ice surface. They had a fixed wing plane as well for aerials. And they had 4 POV cameras. I'm guessing that those two would have been probably in the penalty box, and 2 would have been in both teams' locker rooms or dressing rooms. So that was their complement of accessible cameras that you potentially could have seen cut into the broadcast.
well, it's funny because you go through that, and then we've just come off the Super Bowl, and it's got me thinking. And how do I say this nicely? I think that's, to me, and I want your opinion, I think that's becoming absurd. I don't know. I don't think you're going to use 30 cameras. I don't think you want to use 30 cameras. I don't think it's good television to use 30 cameras. To me, it's just a chest beat that, hey, we've got 30 cameras. And I think the Super Bowl did exactly the same thing. Am I full of it? Or
I mean, we're gonna agree on this one, and it's just because I come sort of from the old school of wanting to see the game, or in my situation, wanting to direct the game. I really believe that there's basic cameras, and we've talked about this before in editions of Inside the Truck podcast. There's base cameras that you use for your coverage, and then everything outside of that is gravy, right? And really, I mean, you could cut if you had a game, a tight, a handheld, a reverse, 5 cameras, you could cut a hockey game, and nobody would be the wiser. So anything outside of that obviously is gravy. But the one thing, especially with these outdoor games, and I have history with them. I've been a part of 3 NHL outdoor games in my career, in the director's chair. Is that you fight there's an inner battle fighting between using all those toys and actually doing a service to the game and covering the game the way that the fan at home wants to see it. Those are really tough. And yesterday Chuck Dammeyer, and then later tonight Chuck Dammeyer, the director for NBC Sports, who's responsible for all the pictures that you see. There's a lot going on, and he has to be really super controlled into what he's mixing into the broadcast, and how he's mixing it, and when he's mixing it into the broadcast.
so you're sitting there, and they give you all these facilities. They foist these on you. I can't imagine you ask for them. Do you really think is it done for any reason other than for the guy at home to go, wow, they got 30 cameras. This must be good. I better watch. Like, is it all optics, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because you might not get 30 cameras cut into the show live, but they've got enough record sources, machines, where they're recording everything, every frame of everything. And so whether that makes it into the live broadcast or not, it's always good for teases, or for rollouts, or for intermission, or for whatever archival, post creative content purpose that they want to use it for. So I wouldn't say it's a waste. But certainly, I think you're doing a disservice to the game, and you do a disservice to the viewer if you try to cut all 30 cameras in on a live cut during that game.
All I know is that on the first goal, Colorado scored before the, what do we call it, a break? Before the break.
Before the day off.
Right. Mm-hmm. Eddie Olczyk's last words on the third replay were, I'm still not sure how that went in the net.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah. The other problem, too, was the wicked reflection of the sun off the ice. was certainly a tough go for camera operators. Good luck trying to find a tiny little black disc on a glowing white surface moving around at about 100 to 150 miles an hour. That was not easy. And you could see there were moments where, the camera guys were like, I think it's over there. I'm going to loosen up. I'm going to pan left. Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay, we're good. Yep. So, it was a battle all around. The sun was a battle. I want to say, all three of the outdoor games that I did were afternoon events in the sun, and we had ice condition issues and we had delays, and because the ice was not safe for the athletes to skate on. So I'm not sure, the NHL's done a ton of outdoor games. I don't know why they just don't get their head around the fact that these all have to be at night.
So before we talk about the games you've done, which I want to do, I do want to talk about the play-by-play camera, the lead camera in that game yesterday. Did you not think that was too toppy and too close to the ice? And for me, couldn't they have set that scaffold up anywhere?
Yeah, I think they could have, but it was a really tight venue, right? A very intimate venue jammed on the edge of the lake. And I think the farther you bring that camera back, there's going to be more junk in the foreground of that frame, right? If you're in an NHL rink, you've got the lower bowl and you've got wild fans and stuff, so there's a distraction there. But when there's nothing except for cable mats and garbage cans and and matting that for the players have to walk out with their skates and stuff, it starts to look ugly in a hurry. So I'm sure they brought that the main camera deck back as far as they could from the ice without starting to make the venue. I mean, let's face it, this event was all about the look, right? It was hockey played on a postcard, right? And you didn't want anything to spoil that look. Nothing was going to spoil that look. So I think that's probably why you ended up with the camera placement where it was. And it was very close. It was very toppy for sure.
Which is a real shame because, and I watched the part after the pause, and it's just not the same. It's not the same at night.
I mean, that game could have been played on a lake in Sudbury. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't really matter anymore at that point, right? Yeah, sure, you could see some big, some big cedar pines or whatever in the background and stuff, but it wasn't the mind-blowing images that we saw from the drones and the fixed wing aerial when they came on the air at 3:00, was it? I mean, not even close.
No, not even close. So tell me what 3 outdoor games you've directed.
So the first one it was actually 6 years ago this weekend, Steve, ironically. So it's kind of coming out on the anniversary, the 6th anniversary. I did the NHL Stadium Series game. The LA Kings faced the San Jose Sharks at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California. It was a very low-scoring affair. LA won 2-1 in front of over 70,000 people in the NFL Stadium, home of the San Francisco 49ers now. I was with Sportsnet at the time. It was a CBC production, CBC Hockey Night in Canada production for Sportsnet. We took a feed. We took a host feed from NBC, NHL, and NBC, although we had multiple of our own cameras, hard cameras, handhelds, and we had our own robotics as well, too. So there were plenty of, all told, for that show, Steve, I had 34 cameras at my disposal that were available for me to cut into the broadcast.
But you didn't control all 34.
I did not control all 34. Those were the majority of those cameras were game cameras that were operated by NBC that I could take, at my own discretion.
Okay.
The breakdown of those cameras, we had 7 hard cameras, 7 handhelds, 9 robos, an aerial fixed wing that I had access to.
And we should, before we go any further, hard camera is basically a large unit set on a tripod that you can't move anywhere else. And a handheld, obviously, it's on your shoulder. You know, depending on where your drops are and how long your cable is and whether it's RF or not, can go a bunch of different places. But a hard camera is stuck right where it is, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and again, we had sun issues that day. I remember there was a delay to puck drop. Players were out wearing their sunglasses and stuff on the ice. It was one of my favorite memory for that though was the the first intermission and second intermission entertainment acts. You know how these outdoor games they come with entertainment, right? It's sports and entertainment. It's not just a hockey game. So the first intermission we had John Fogerty perform, and in the second we had Melissa Etheridge. So NBC and the host feed the NBC as the host feed provided those productions if we wanted to just take them. But we decided, and because I really wanted to take a shot at it. So I ended up directing. I didn't do Melissa Etheridge. We took the feed for Melissa Etheridge, but I ended up directing the John Fogerty performance in the first intermission. And that was so much fun because that was, I mean, I had done, Blue Rodeo at Hockey Hall of Fame Awards and stuff, but I had never done anybody like John Fogerty. And so that was fun. I had a chance to work with an AD. We blocked, I was part of all the rehearsals, blocked out all the camera shots, got a chance to meet John Fogerty backstage and stuff. So it was that was my favorite moment from that game for sure.
That's pretty cool. And so, what was the second one you did?
Then the next one I did was in January, New Year's Day of 2016. I did the NHL Winter Classic. It was between Montreal and Boston. It played at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, home of the New England Patriots. That one was again. We had ice condition issues. That game, Montreal, it wasn't much of a game, competitiveness on the ice. Montreal hammered Boston 5-1. So there were a lot of people that had made their way down from Quebec and Montreal to support the team, but it was the partisan Bruins crowd was kind of silenced that day. I remember that game we had just north of 30. I want to probably say 35 cameras at my disposal. Again, NHL and NBC was the lead feed, being in America. Again, this one actually, I believe, was for Sportsnet only. I don't think this one was on Hockey Night. So for that one, I had eight hard cameras, 10 handheld cameras, 12 robos, 3 jibs, a sky cam, and a fixed wing aerial camera. Again, not controlling all of those, but that they were in play if I wanted to work them in live in the broadcast. But my memory, sadly, of that weekend was the day on the Saturday. So the day before, they had the first ever women's outdoor classic, which took place between. So these are the NWHL teams, the Montreal Lake Canadiens versus the Boston Pride. And if you remember that weekend, there was a player for Boston, Dena Lang. She was playing a puck behind her goal line and stepped on. She's a defenseman. Stepped on a stick and fell awkwardly head first into the boards, and was taken off on a stretcher, taken to hospital, where she ended up being a paraplegic with a loss of a lot of use in her hands as well too. And so that was sort of like a really sad moment that hung over that weekend for sure. People were, there were rumors or words coming out that part of that injury was a result of bad ice, which obviously, short of an FBI investigation, you're not going to be able to make that determination. But again, we had ice issues. It was not so much sun there. We had rain. Which completely made the ice almost unusable or unplayable as well too. So that was my second one.
And what was your third one? Well, I think we've talked about your third one before,
Yeah.
BMO Field in Toronto, right?
That's right. Yeah. So that was on January 1st of 2017. In honor of the NHL's 100 years, they played the NHL Centennial Classic, and that was played at BMO between the Red Wings and the Leafs. That one we were actually that one was for Hockey Night and Sportsnet. We were the host feed, we were the lead feed, so NHL and NBC took their production basically from us. Had 39 cameras on that one, Steve. 8 hard cameras, 10 handhelds, 12 robotics, a sky cam, a ref cam. You remember Sportsnet Hockey Night had the ref cams back then, a helicopter. And my favorite camera was we had a fisheye wide beauty that was right basically at the top of BMO Field, right on the top of the roof that looked down. And it was really cool because the shape of the playing surface was set in basically, it looked like NHL hockey pucks. And so you could see like the NHL logo in the hockey puck. And it was, for me, it was just, I mean, you can't use that camera too much live just because it is so distorted because it's a fisheye. But I just remember that image was phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, so that one too. Again, I had an entertainment moment, and we've talked about this before on Inside the Truck podcast. Brian Adams performed in the first intermission, and I knew from that morning when Brian was scheduled to do his rehearsal and didn't quite rehearse. Instead elected to hang out with Wayne Gretzky.
He did all he needed to do, Paul.
Yeah.
Brian was happy with what Brian had done.
Right. So what Brian did was he didn't rehearse and he decided to change his set. So I had spent like 2 weeks blocking out and watching YouTube videos of every live Brian Adams performance of these three songs that he had selected, only to find out that the third one wasn't actually going to happen. So I had to whip that one up on the fly. The first two songs everybody remembers, Summer '69 and Run to You. Then he did You Belong to Me, which was just kind of this rockabilly guitar number, and I had no idea. I had not prepped for it. I found out like literally, I don't know, 5 hours before or whatever on game day that this was what he was going to do. The only reason that that was a success was my technical director that day, technical director from the CBC, David Hustler. He saved my bacon because not only is he an outstanding TD, but he's also an unbelievable music geek and a music. He plays guitar and he actually has produced and directed videos that have actually been on, I believe, on CMT and other networks as well. He helped me that day because typically when you do live entertainment, there's an AD that will be beside you, and you've got all your shots in that entire performance have already been rehearsed multiple times. They're scripted, right? And so what happens is the AD will talk to the cameras and say, ready 6 on the guitar, ready 2 on the singer, ready 5 on the drums. And then I just say, take 2, take 6, take 5 at the right moment, right? I'm not watching, readying, and taking. Somebody's doing that for me. And but we didn't have that person in the truck that day. So Hustler beside me was the guy who was going to do that. So he was talking to cameras saying, camera 6, give me drums, ready 6. And I'll be like, take 6. And then it's like, ready 2, give me Brian Adams. And then he'd start to a tight vocal and I'll say, just take 2. And I was just basically like, I had like double fisted. I was just like taking the shots and it helped me through. And that whole thing, I mean, that was, there was a lot of memories from that show for sure. But that on the fly Brian Adams production was one that I'll never forget.
And I don't think they want to play these games at night because they're much more beautiful in the daytime, right? You could play a night game anywhere, but
Yeah,
I don't know what the solution is. Like, can you somehow get a giant sunshade over the? I mean, I don't know.
right. Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is like all those events that I did that we talked about had fly pasts as well too, right? You know, that the Centennial Classic had a two-ship or two F-18, from Bagotville, Quebec, come blasting over, and I'll never forget the images. I had a handheld on the Maple Leafs blue line, and I'll never forget. It was like Mitch Marner was standing there with somebody else, and these F-18s came over at about 500 feet, and they just kind of went like vertical and peeled back towards the Toronto skyline, and Marner's face was just like, and it was just like, I mean, they replayed that a couple times in the show. It's just phenomenal. So you're right, you don't get those images if it's like an 8 o'clock puck drop or something. You know what I mean? Because all those sort of extraneous things or entertainment style things seem to not have as much of an impact for sure.
I suppose one day the playing surface on a game like that won't be frozen water. They'll have something else that won't melt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when that'll be, but it would be great because while it didn't work out perfectly on the Saturday for the NHL at Lake Tahoe, I love that they tried it and
Mm-hmm.
did it because the Winter Classics for me, in a lot of ways, just as a layperson watching, they all kind of look the same to me, but this one was set apart and different, and I thought, you know, lots of kudos for trying something new.
100%. I mean, this was really kind of like, do you remember the movie Mystery Alaska?
I
You
haven't
know,
seen it, but I know
Yeah.
about it. Yeah,
So I mean, this was like they were trying to do a real life Mystery Alaska. I mean, this was Hollywood, right? This wasn't NHL. This wasn't TV, sports TV. I mean, the setting was, it was basically, it would just happen to be a hockey game, but being sort of played in the middle of a movie set. You know what I mean? And that's really what it was. And you're right. Kudos to the NHL for going all in on it, and kudos to NBC for providing the resources to be able to make it look the way that it did. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, I don't mean to be like grumpy old man. Hey, kids, get off my lawn. But at the end of the day, for me, it's about the game, right? And it's about the 2 points that are available for the two teams that are playing, and their seasons are going on. These are 2 points in the standings that may or may not, allow them to make the playoffs or whatever. And I think you really have to, um, you know, treat that. Don't forget to keep that into the equation when you're doing something like this.
Well, I applaud them for making a beautiful, beautiful setting. They didn't get all the dominoes to fall where they wanted them to fall, but I did think it was a beautiful effort.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait to see what their next one's going to be.
Yeah, me too. That'll be very cool. So that ends in frozen pond. See, it was melting, so we were in the pond. That had nothing to do with me. That was all my podcast partner, Paul, also known as Grumpy Old Man.
Hey, kids, get off my lawn.
I'm Steve. He's Paul. That's it for Inside the Truck YouTube episode 7 in Frozen Pond.